everyone, Andrew McDonald. If I asked you to name the single most important message in the entire Bible, what would you say? With more than 700,000 words of scripture, the answer might seem very complicated. But Jesus gave us that answer. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. I had heard these words countless times, but then one day I realized something. I'd spent much of my life reading them, but I never truly understand what they were asking of me. And when I finally did, everything changed. You know, if you had to reduce the entire Christian life into one thing, what would it be? The Bible is filled with history and wisdom and prophecy, poetry, commandments, parables, and stories of faith, failure, redemption, and salvation. We can spend an entire lifetime studying it, and many people do, and still discover something new every time we open the pages. I've read the Bible several times, and between those readings and years of attending church and listening to homilies and returning to individual passages, I've encountered many of its words again and again. Yet somehow, for much of my life, I missed what may have been the most important point. Not because I never read it, not because I never heard it, but because I don't think I fully understood what it was asking of me. Then I encountered the words of Jesus in a very different way. You shall love your God with your whole heart, with your whole soul, mind, and strength. Now, I've read these words many times before, but this time was different. And suddenly, a question I had been asking, perhaps subconsciously, for much of my life, seemed to have an answer. Why am I here? What's my purpose? What am I supposed to do with my life? And the answer was remarkably simple. Love God. You know, the Bible is a remarkable collection of books. And you think about stories about creation, about Noah, about Abraham, Moses, Peter, Paul, the apostles, and of course, Jesus. You think about the Psalms, the prophets, the parables, the mystery of the Trinity, the Eucharist. For 2,000 years, Christians have studied, debated, preached, written, prayed over these things. And every day, thousands upon thousands of homilies and sermons are delivered around the world. We seek to understand, we seek wisdom, we seek direction, we seek meaning, and often we seek answers to the question, what does this all mean for my life? But perhaps amid all the seeking, we can overlook the answer that has been directly in front of us all along. I know I did. It wasn't that I was necessarily looking for the wrong thing. It was that I was looking for the wrong reason. And the reason was me. What would I learn? How could I benefit? Even going to church, it was about what will I get out of this? And all that time I was looking for what God would do for me. When in fact, I should have been asking, how can I learn to love God more? And that realization changed everything. You know, we find these words as far back as Deuteronomy. You shall love the Lord your God with your whole heart and with your whole being and with your whole strength. Now, Moses doesn't present this as a suggestion. I mean, the words are to be taken to heart, repeated to your children, spoken at home, away, remembered when lying down and when getting up, written on doorposts and houses and on gates. In other words, do not forget this. Keep it in front of you. Build your life around it. Centuries later, when Jesus is asked, which is the greatest commandment? He returns to these words in Mark 12:30. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And then he adds to love your neighbor as yourself. Concluding, there is no other greater commandment than these. And there it was, the priority, the foundation, the starting point. Love God, not occasionally, not when it's convenient, not simply when you need something, and with your whole heart, soul, mind, and strength. I began to wonder whether I had ever really considered the magnitude of those words. You know, I've been married for over 35 years, and the love that I have for my wife, my family, is so deep. Anyone who has truly loved another person knows what that means. And when you deeply love someone, you want what's best for them. You make sacrifices for them. You put their needs before your own. You protect them. You care about what matters to them. And even then, our love is imperfect. So I began to ask myself a very difficult question. If I know what it means to deeply love my wife and family, what does it mean to love God even more? And can I say that I love God with my whole heart? What about my soul, my mind, and my strength? Taken individually, each of those words presents a challenge. Taken together, they describe something extraordinary. They describe a life completely oriented toward God. And I realized that although I consider myself a devout and practicing Catholic, my priorities were not always ordered that way. God was important. My faith was important. But was God truly first? That question forced me to look differently at my life, my career, my ambitions, my successes, my failures, my relationships, my time, my talents, even my faith itself. I began to understand that loving God couldn't simply be a priority. It had to become the priority. And that required a realignment. You know, I found that something interesting happens when we begin to put this commandment at the center of our lives. Everything else starts to make more sense. Why should I love my neighbor? Because my neighbor was created by the God I love. Why should I care for those who are suffering? Because God cares for them. Why should I forgive? Because God forgives me. Why should I care for creation? Because it belongs to Him. Because when we love someone, we care about what they love. Think about someone you love deeply. Would you intentionally hurt the people they love? Would you destroy something precious to them? Or would you ignore what matters most to them? Of course not. Now, consider God. If I truly love God with all my heart, my soul, my mind, and my strength, shouldn't I also learn to love what he loves? And that includes the person standing next to me. And that's why Jesus connects those two great commandments. Love God, love your neighbor. You know, for much of my life, I thought purpose was something I had to discover. What am I supposed to accomplish? What career should I pursue? What difference should I make? What legacy should I leave? And those aren't necessarily bad questions, but perhaps they aren't the first questions. The first question is simpler. How can I love God? Because if I get that right, everything else can begin to find its proper place. My career becomes a way to serve God. My relationships become a way to love God's children. My talents become gifts to be offered back to the one who gave them to me. And my success becomes opportunities for gratitude. Even my struggles can take on new meaning. As St. Paul writes in Romans 8:28, we know that all things work for good for those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. Now, this doesn't mean life suddenly becomes easy, and it doesn't mean we won't experience suffering and uncertainty and disappointment and loss. But it means that those things no longer stand alone. They exist within something greater, a life oriented toward God. So I ask myself, do I love God? And if so, do I love him with my heart, soul, mind, and strength? I can't say that I have fully achieved that, and it will certainly take a lifetime. But I know now the direction I want my life to go in, toward him. And that's what the Heart, Soul, Mind, and Strength Initiative really means to me. It's a journey of learning what it truly means to love God. Not with part of ourselves, but with everything we have and everything we are. Through the way we live our lives, it begins with a simple command: love God. Put him first, then allow everything else to find its proper place. Because if we miss that, we may spend our entire lives searching for something that has been right in front of us all along. But if we get it right, if we truly learn to love God with our heart, soul, mind, and strength, then perhaps we've discovered the very reason why we're here. And compared to that, nothing else matters. God bless, heart, soul, mind, and strength. Join the journey.